What do you think is the revenue that we are losing on YouTube just because we are not building the right platforms that would keep the money in Pakistan?
20 billion right now.
20 billion rupees is leaving the country.
On
Right.
YouTube, on Google only. I'm hearing about Sindh Premier League being done in National Stadium, Karachi. Why don't you want to take it to a Hyderabad or a Sakhar or a Larkana and say, let's do 3 more stadiums?
And you're not growing the economy, you're not growing the talent.
You're doing nothing.
You're doing nothing.
You're just making money and
So
sitting
then
on it.
then technically there's no difference between you and any other rent seeker. You're another rent seeker in this
But
economy.
these guys are rent seekers anyway, because most of them rely on government advertising. A lot of people who work in this industry might hate me because I'm saying what I'm saying. And this is also the reason why people haven't seen me on a camera in a very, very long time. Right? Because unfortunately, when I speak the truth, it's controversial. Reinvest in people, Faizan. People run the business. They are the most important asset that you have. Look, in 2 years, I lost my successor and his successor to Google.
Right.
Right now, I don't know if I want to laugh or to cry.
Because you lost you lost a pipeline.
I was back by like 5 years.
Hello and welcome everyone to Digitales. My name is Faizan Sayed, founder and CEO of East River, and today I have with me one of the number one top guys in the media industry of Pakistan. In fact, I would say he runs the largest media business created in this country. It has Publicis affiliate brands. It built and launched Coke Studio, theater, the Copycat Productions, Paune 14 August that you've heard of. They had the PSL rights. They've done everything that you can think of in media. We're going to talk everything about the industry. Raihan Merchant, how are you today?
Very well. Thank you for calling me over.
Thank you for taking the time out. I know you're a busy man and you being here means a lot. Now, I want to start with what is an easy question, but I think it'll lead to a lot of controversy. As we speak, the ratings business is banned in this country after a brief run of 16 years with Pemra and after being declared as an entity that is anti-state. How do you see the state of media evolve right now in Pakistan when you can't even figure out what the ratings of a TV channel are and digital is suddenly blowing up at the same time? And then there's all of this political uncertainty that is giving viewers a new lease of life on television.
So look, to be honest, I want to congratulate everybody who is a PTI supporter for leading us into this situation. Right? So,
is this the highest amount of AdX spent this year in this month?
Well, AdX spend has been on television.
Right.
Hasn't slowed down at all. Right? And the reason is every time, and this country has seen quite a few.
Right.
Situations where people are forced either because of an economic situation or a political situation or something to stay home, or COVID, for example, right? So every time they stay home, our advertisers have now realized that that is the best time to build image and continue to show them advertising. So that means money going into media.
Right.
Right? So that's where it all boils down to. Now, I'm going to take a step forward. What have the ratings led to? The ratings have led to a concentration of advertising funds at the top. Right? So your top 3 groups.
Okay. So in terms of the groups, advertising at the group level, not in the medium level. At the content creator level. At the
right?
creator level.
So I call them content creators. To my mind, Jio News, Jio Entertainment, Hum TV,
Right.
Hum News are all content creators, right? And it's just been concentrated at the top. So today, if I look at total spend behind video or video content across YouTube or across Facebook or Meta or across television, about 55 to 60% of the money goes there, right? What has that led to? that has led to an inflation because people who create content for these large organizations can see that the money is being made. They see so much advertising going there. So they charge a higher amount. The company which buys content for the channels is owned by the channel owner. So they take their first level of profit when they're buying content.
Right.
The second level of profit when they sell more expensive advertising because they're drawing the audience.
Right.
So they're justified and the rating numbers were justifying it. So that's the second level where they make money, and then they take the same content, put it on YouTube. And because there is audience on YouTube also, so we advertise some more on YouTube. So the cost of content is zero. So even if Google gives you 50% or 52% or 55%, that is pure profit. And the beauty is that it doesn't even come back to Pakistan.
Right.
Because everybody's channels are registered not in Pakistan.
That's true.
So that's
and it's in dollars.
That's brilliant.
And YouTube is paying them in dollars.
Yes,
absolutely. And they're paying them in dollars outside.
Yes.
So basically, they are making a killing.
You're talking about controversy? There you go.
So you're saying at the content creation and acquisition level, is their first sort of ability to buy and extract value. And then when they sell to themselves, they keep a little bit of profit off the books of the TV channel. And then when they lay that content out on YouTube, they make money in dollars, which is then fed to their global entity. So they're being monetized 3 times, in a sense.
The same piece of content.
The same piece of content.
And it's the same set of people who create that content again and again and again. So I don't even want to, to be honest, I haven't seen television dramas in such a long time that I would be a fool to even attempt to say, okay, here is an actor or here is an actress or here is a writer.
Right.
That you see, because I just look at the numbers and I can tell what's happening. Right? But
isn't this the same standard world over? It's power concentrated in the hands of a few mediums, a few groups. Look at the Murdoch group, right? It's a similar, but at a larger scale. That's happening.
So that's exact. Now let me ask you a question.
Right.
So when you look at News Corp or Murdoch, where did they start from?
Australia, newspapers.
Wait.
He clubbed papers together.
Now, where are they today? Right. So in let's say 30 years, they grew out of Australia and went and bought Sky all over Europe.
Yeah.
Right. That's innovation. That's putting money or reinvesting the profits that you make. Right? Not put it in your pocket, go buy 4 properties somewhere and say, that's it, I'm done. I've done well.
Right.
Right? And I can still go back to the advertiser and say, look, meri cost to itni upar chali gayi hai. So you need to increase your rates.
Jo ki khud hi badhai hai.
So you have to increase your rates.
Right. So you think that there's nothing wrong with, value creation, profitability mein koi masla nahi hai, but what is being done with that value that's created?
Reinvest in the bloody industry, yaar.
So investment nahi ho rahi hai. Reinvestment nahi ho rahi hai industry.
What reinvestment? Please show me the reinvestment.
There's a hot drama running these days that is getting all the ratings.
Who gives a monkey about the drama? I'm talking about the distribution platforms. Right? So the moment you talk about YouTube, please just go across and let me give you a couple of numbers. Okay. Google claims that YouTube viewers in Pakistan are 70 million plus.
Right.
And the total population is 240 million or 230 million.
Right.
India is 10 times our size. 10 times our size.
About 1.5 billion as you
right? So let's say 8 times our size.
ठीक है.
So YouTube should be 8 times, which is 500 million plus.
Sure.
Please Google the number for YouTube downloads in India. You will not cross 120, 130.
That's because they all have OTT.
Thank you very much.
And the problem is no one's investing in OTT over here.
Thank you very much.
And for
Bingo. How long did it take you to get there?
But
2
look,
minutes.
But I'm in the industry. I mean, I was in TV, so I understand that. But the thing is that why aren't they investing in OTT? And for those who don't know what OTT is, it's over the top. It means basically your subscription, SWOT, AWOT. It's basically your advertising driven or subscription driven.
You're getting too technical. Wait.
Okay, let's take a step back. It's like the Netflix for local content. There should be a net, like there is TapMad, sort of.
And guess who's the first official media organization OTT in Pakistan? The government channel launched it. It's called PTV Flix.
So who says the Pakistani government is doing backward things? They're doing very progressive things.
So here's the answer, right? So they've kind of taken that.
And you guys had something to do with PTV Flix too.
We launched it, right? So we're managing the back
So
end.
you're patting yourself on your back.
So if nobody else is going to do it, Faizan Syed, somebody has to do it. Yeah.
So then why aren't they doing it?
We're not the Arab culture where you say, if nobody else is doing it, then I don't need to do it also. Right? And if somebody else starts doing it, everybody turns around and says, oh, he's doing it, so let him do it. Why should we attempt?
Why aren't they doing OTT?
I don't know.
What do you think is the reason for not doing it? Because the thing is, I have a problem with the whole YouTube monetization model. My only problem is that why do we want money to leave the country in this environment, right? If you've created content, jo Pakistan ka bana hua content, a local platform pe bana hua content, local audiences ke liye bana hua content hai, local actors use karke, local production karke, why aren't we keeping that money in the country across all mediums? And you can do that on digital as well if you build a local Netflix, right? And house the content there and take a subscription of 50, 100, 200 rupees or do pay as you go. At least वो पैसे पाकिस्तान में रहेंगे. हमने आसानी करने के लिए, I don't know what the reason is, because we're lazy. सारा कुछ YouTube पे डाल दो and 45% of it.
I can't afford more controversy than this because now it will bring in people who've made the money.
Right.
So they've made the money. Good for them.
So is
their choice. They choose what they want to do. They want to do with.
Do you think that it is also a state of just why should I invest in Pakistan when I can get this at least 55% for free?
Look, I don't want to get into the reason of why they're doing this, why they're not doing this.
So you talk about people just relying on global platforms. 55% of the revenue stays outside. What do you think is the revenue that we are losing on YouTube just because we are not building the right platforms that would keep the money in Pakistan?
20 billion right now.
20 billion rupees. 20 billion rupees is leaving the country.
On YouTube, on Google only.
On just Google. 20 billion rupees works out to, let's say,
$30 million.
It's a fair amount of money. Any $1 million at this point in time is helpful, let alone 30 of them.
So that's the point. Look, the thing is, so that's one of the routes, right?
Right.
The other thing, again, Faizan, we started this in the video distribution industry via cable in 2003, right? And we have just not been able to discover any other form of revenue or be able to move away from that coaxial cable with which we distribute television.
That's because it's cheap. I mean, think about the average GDP per capita, consumer spending. 200 रुपए में आपके घर में आपको entertainment मिल रहा है 100 रुपए में.
But have you tried asking them for more money? You haven't. Right? As a result of which, even when you look at subscriber-based platforms, they just can't seem to go beyond that 300 rupee mark. Right? Look at TapMad. They are also struggling to go beyond 300 rupee mark. Why? Because nobody invested. So I keep coming back, right, to the problem with people in this industry for the last 20 years has been nobody wants to reinvest in the industry. They want to take that money and run.
But isn't that symptomatic of all industries in Pakistan? Which industry is seeing that kind of reinvestment?
So that's why you're seeing what you're seeing, right? And why does that happen? So, look, it also happens because you are afraid of what is happening in the country from a political perspective. Business, and this business more so than any other business,
Right.
is very highly connected to your political situation.
And it can be shut down immediately at any point in time.
And hence that fear, right? So would you then, if it was you, who didn't know if my channel would get shut down because I took a political side, right? Whether you are on one side or another side, I'm not saying which one, because they're all as bad as each other,
right,
in terms of political environment. But if you were running a business in such an environment, why would you even reinvest?
It's like saying Fox News being shut down because they support Trump.
There you
That
go,
doesn't happen.
right? The reason why that doesn't happen is because Fox News does not get shut down, right? And in our case, there is a fear that I might get shut down, or I might get... So if I am going to get a favor in one of the governments, then I should also be prepared to take the risk of getting shut down in the other one.
Which means not investing as much as I could.
So hence I am not investing.
And which is why I rely on a YouTube, because it gives me everything for free. And even if I have to give up half my revenue, so be it.
And there is no cost.
And there's no
right?
cost.
So if you're running your own tech platform, then you need to pay for the tech.
Right.
You need to pay for the hosting. You need to pay for, let's say, AWS and all the rest of it. So development cost, a bigger team to upload the content.
Right.
So there are all those costs associated with it, right? Why make that investment? And one of the reasons why you keep going around in circles is exactly that. Nobody is exiting the circle or trying to exit the circle, right? So what happens then? You start getting funding from people who have nothing to do with this industry, right? So you suddenly had college owners investing in television channels. Then you had business houses in Punjab who were investing. Now you have real estate people or land developers.
Is it because they think television is insurance?
So it could either be insurance, or it could also be, I've made the money. I want people to know who I am. Right? That could also be.
But you can buy that through PR.
We don't believe in PR.
There is a large real estate developer who doesn't own a TV channel yet seems to have bought everyone out.
So
he's clear proof of that model working well.
But maybe other people have their own choices, right? So if that's a choice that they've exercised and they feel that this is a better route to do this, then fine. At least you're getting investment into the industry, right? So you suddenly have these two, three new entertainment channels which are coming up, and they're all being funded right from the scratch.
Right.
So hopefully they will bring some competition.
But competition in an industry that has not seen its total AdX amount or volume grow, it's been hovering around the, let's say, 40 to 45 billion mark.
No, it went up to 70 and then came back.
But it was a very brief period that
That's
it went
all
up
right.
to.
But when it came back, it was when it got hit by COVID.
Understood. But if you think about it, if I take the last 10-year average, right? Am I seeing an upward trajectory in that average? I'm seeing that average hover between, let's say, 40 to 45, 46 billion. Maybe there was a spike somewhere in between, but we're not seeing an upward trajectory. And the problem is that pie...
Because that is where digital took over. That is where YouTube and Meta products took over. Right?
But this is divided amongst digital and traditional, right? So print...
So if you take the written word out of it,
right?
Okay, and I keep going back to video content, right? And if you say, all right, so if today advertising behind video content stands at anywhere between 700 to 800 billion rupees, 70 to 80 billion rupees, you've had that number for the last 4-5 years. The only difference is that your conventional television channels, or linear channels as they're called, they've started to lose. Well, they haven't really. The smaller ones have lost advertising, and some of them got bought out.
Right.
So new fresh investment came in. And the money started getting concentrated amongst the 3, 4, or 5 large ones, and behind YouTube and Meta, right? So that's how the money has kind of changed hands, so to speak. Now, the problem with YouTube is that nobody monitors YouTube as such, right? You get monitoring for television. There is nobody who monitors YouTube or Meta, right? So whatever numbers
They
that
publish.
whatever numbers that you're getting, they don't publish any numbers. They don't
Right.
need to, right? For them, Pakistan is like a rounding off error, to be honest. Right? So they couldn't give a monkey. They're also taking whatever money they can
Right.
and running away.
Right.
I mean, regardless of whether Farhan Qureshi or Ali Khurshid or whoever comes back and makes these tall claims that we empowered so many people and we're offering so many courses, I mean, please take the total value of 15,000 or 40,000 courses from Coursera or somebody that Google announced last week, right? What fraction of a percentage that is of the money that they take out of Pakistan, no GST paid on it, no withholding tax on it. That's all on top, right? So you want to look at those numbers, go to FBR. That's where you'll have to rework the numbers from, because that's where your actual spending is coming from, right? GST की declaration होगी या फॉर्म साइन होगा कि जी हमने डिजिटल पे इतनी यूट्यूब पे एडवर्टाइजिंग की थी, और या फिर withholding tax होगा which they have to put in. So those will work you backwards to find out how much they've spent on digital.
So if I was to take a step back and say, okay, let's take a look at the entire ADEX, right? If I say कि अगर हम out of home, which is your hoardings and everything, print, television, digital, combining all of these, what is the total available advertising spend in Pakistan? Everything all in.
Between around 80 billion.
So that's 80 billion rupees, right?
And it stayed, like you said, it
stayed flat. I remember this 80 billion number was around 2018 or 19 when I was doing some research. I remember this number from then. Of this 80 billion, what I understand is, let's say 40 to 45, which is the number I was quoting, is what was available for the video piece.
For linear video.
For linear video, which is television, right? So television has not increased more than, let's say, couple, ऊपर नीचे होता रहता है, 4-5. So it's 40 to 45 billion TV, ठीक है. Then digital was the one that saw a rush in its trajectory. Digital stands at about 25 billion right about now. So 40 to 45 with digital at 25, that puts it as 70, which leaves about 10 billion for print and out of home. And radio. Sorry, I forgot radio. So 10 billion is for print, out of home, and radio.
The rest of them are very small. They've
right?
Yeah.
The challenge that I see in this industry, if you keep launching TV channels and you're each eating from the same 40 to 45 billion pie, how is this a financially viable business? Especially when you at the start of this said that 50 to 60% of this goes to the top 3 houses. Right? So let's say 50% goes to the top 3. 20 billion to सिर्फ 3 लोगों के पास चले गए. तो बाकी 20 billion is for everyone else, and you just mentioned 2 more entertainment channels launching. Who's doing the financial math on how they will fund their business? Number one. Number two, why isn't digital growing faster than it should be? I mean, everyone is on digital.
There are no products. There are no products
to advertise on.
Yes, exactly. Get the product. Look, so Temra was created and the licenses were given out in 2001.
Right.
2001 to 2004, it was like 3 channels which came in.
Yeah.
Right. And then suddenly, once cross-media licensing was allowed, because it was only the newspaper owners who understood content creation.
And they're the ones today that are actually thriving. Most of them.
And, well, not really.
Yeah, there's one exception.
Not really, yeah. And then all hell broke loose, right? So today you have like 37 licensed television channels. in the
137 licensed, and how many on air?
Well, practically all of them are on air, depending on where they need to be. So let's say if there is a channel called Vash, which is Balochi, it doesn't need to be on air in Peshawar, right?
Right.
Or in Sakkar. So, but it's on air in Balochistan everywhere. So that's how it gets broken down.
So you're saying that if I take the top three out, which let's say have about 7, 8 channels, let's say 10 channels, this is for simple math. And let's say there's 100 channels on air. 10 are owned by the top 3. 90 channels then have to split the 20 billion. How much does that leave per channel? That doesn't leave
enough to pay for their expenses, because their expenses are also very small. But that also means that they cannot reinvest in content.
Right.
And hence, if they cannot, then they go under and then they sell the license. So there have been quite a few licenses changing hands in the last couple of years.
Right.
And that's going to continue to happen. Right? 10 Sports' license just changed hands. Right? Not A+, Public TV. Right? PNN. So this is all fresh money coming in. Now, where does that money go? How does that convert into content? How does it impact the industry? The thing is, everybody's going into content right now. And I am saying, hold on, guys, for 20 years, you have only been relying on advertising revenue, which makes me a very happy man, right? Because
you should not be complaining.
Now, the only problem is it's not about complaining, right? It's also about that pressure, because if their people have not had a salary increase
right
for a while and they want to increase their rates, I cannot, because the pie is stagnant.
The pie is stagnant, and there's more competition coming in.
So what do I do? And if I'm thinking of those people who will either lose their jobs, because if you have less people, then you can increase their salary. So some people will get fired, right? So where are those people going, and how is this industry progressing? So unless you find yourself another source of revenue, which you have not been able to find over the last 20 years, look around you.
What could be an alternate source of revenue?
Go to the consumer for subscription. So for example, let's talk about the top 3. Right? All they need to do is for 6 months, take their top content which they put on their linear channels, take them off YouTube, and put that content on their own OTT platform.
Which some of them have, by the way. But they're not subscription based, they're free.
That's what I'm saying. And just do it subscription based.
They're fearful that they lose the revenue stream. That's why they don't want to make that switch.
Exactly my point. Right? So it's a classic business dilemma. Where do I take a compromise on a standard set revenue,
right,
to see if I can create another stream of revenue, right? And there are models, Faizan. So I don't want to point into a direction and say, you guys are not doing this, you guys are not doing that. So I'm not pointing in anybody's direction specifically, but is somebody going to take that risk, right? And if I haven't seen anybody take that risk over the last 20 years, then I'm going to take that risk, right? And I'll give you a very interesting example. When we launched PTV Flix, we haven't really advertised the product, right? Really, we haven't advertised the product. And this product is on subscription outside Pakistan, right? The number of downloads that I'm picking up from India just by being available on the Google Play Store and on the App Store, right, is not even funny.
And that's something no one's considering.
Thank you.
That's right? Because our content thrives in that market.
My point is, that's exactly my point, right? So we have actually just been going around on the same circle over and over and over again.
So no one's thinking like Rupert Murdoch.
Nobody's exiting the circle,
Right.
right? And unless you take an exit, you will not know what exists outside of the circle.
Right.
And so it seems to be too much at stake, right? So I'm just saying purely from a content distribution perspective, right? Why aren't we doing DTH? I mean, तो खैर,
पुरानी
I think
बात हो
time निकल गया DTH का.
DTH का तो time निकल गया.
But
$500 million की bid थी इस पे.
why aren't we doing 50 billion rupees 5 billion rupees is the license fee. And the only company which got security cleared hasn't paid the entire money either, right? And my information is that company is probably not going to be able to launch DTH.
They say हम आ रहे हैं बस. And they've been saying that.
There's a story I used to hear when I was a bacha, which was Sher aaya, Sher aaya, Sher aaya. So I am waiting.
ये वही story है.
For the lion to roar.
Speaking of lions, could there be a platform? Okay, let me rephrase the way I'm going to ask this. Why isn't there a platform like Hulu is in the US where multi-channel content resides in one place and everyone sets their differences aside and takes a share of the revenue based on the view count?
Wait for it. Working on it.
Does it require someone from the outside and not from the content creator side to put this together?
Look, I think, and when I said I am a very happy man when everybody relies on advertising, I think this solution, the one on the model of Hulu, is something that we are in a very good position to do.
Right.
Right? Because we already have captive audience in terms of the content creators.
Right.
So that's a model that so to be honest, it's not as easy because you have to go and speak with multiple stakeholders, right? But it's possible. It is doable, right? So it took us a couple of years to crack the technology. So we've cracked the technology. We've now trying to transfer that tech into a set-top box.
Why was it so hard to crack the tech? Because it's been around for a decade now.
No, for our market. Because the problem is, like you said earlier, that if our GDP per capita doesn't allow people to afford more,
right,
then you need to be somewhere in the vicinity of a very small number for more people to be able to afford it.
Correct.
Right? So that's where the struggle lies.
How does India crack it? They're in a similar boat. They don't have that kind of...
No, but their numbers are pretty good in the sense that if I were to, let's say, convert that into PKR,
right?
If I take the basic Hotstar subscription, which is at 3,000 INR, it's about 6,500 PKR. How many households in Pakistan can afford 6,500 PKR?
Per month. That's $20 a month.
Right? And India, because of its... So even in India, Hotstar is 60 million subscribers. And last month, they lost subscribers when they tried to increase their subscription money.
Higher than the 3,000 INR. But you see, they have the population, right? So they're able to get the volumes that way.
No, but so Hotstar, which is the biggest, was at 60 million. Okay, again, not something that it's all available on the internet.
So if it's 60 million of, let's say, a population of 1.5 billion, we do the math.
0.2%.
0.2%, and then if you do it off of ours,
so bring it here.
So you're looking at 4-5 million subscribers. How does the math work out on that tech?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Unless you bring it down in terms of its transfer on a box, which is cheap.
Right.
And there is no manufacturing capability in Pakistan anyway.
None.
Add to it 175% duty.
Correct. Plus the cheapest box, and this is pre-devaluation when you were at about 160, 170, was easily 6,000 rupees.
No, so it was, and it still is, let's say $38 or
Yeah.
$40, right? So that's 12,000 rupees cost,
Cost, exactly.
right? And then add duty.
Add duty, yeah. So you're looking at least an entry point of 20, 25,000 rupees just to get that box inside your house. Right? So forget the box then for a second. Why not just go on digital? Why not give that subscription on a platform that I can download as an app on my phone? There's no cost to that.
But the problem is, do you want to watch that content on your phone?
I watch content on my phone every day. My last, my consumption habit is that of become that of a millennial because, there's stuff happening around kids, family. It's just easier for me to consume content. And when I ask, let's say some of the younger people in my office, their phone is their primary consumption device for even mid-form content, right? Maybe not the long-form movies, but they even consume movies on that. But for short, like mid-sized content, let's say 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So why are we even going to the set-top box route? Skip that, just go straight into the app.
Because we are not full of millennials who live in urban areas.
That's
right?
fine, but
those
the bulk
smartphones are not available. So you have 50 million, 60 million smartphones. उसके बाद क्या करूँगा?
हाँ, but daily active users आपके 35-40 मिलियन तो हैं, उसमें से ही अगर हमें 4-5 मिलियन मिल जाए और वो urban से ही मिल जाए app के through.
But Faizan, we're not. So that's my point, right? We're not talking about an OTT app for the urban centers, right? We're talking about questioning a cable distribution or a video distribution phenomenon which terminates the signal on a TV set and monetizing that.
And that's hard because that requires you to completely upend the existing system, and it requires any household to be able to give that. And even if they break that up into their cable model, so for example 25,000 का अगर set top box है, मैंने उसको 25 महीने पे financing पे भी ले आया 1200-1500 per month. That's still a high subscription relative to what they're paying for cable today, which is 300-400 rupees.
Yeah, but then you can then put premium content and be able to afford better content. So your overall industry
improves,
right? Because so if you look at the amount of or the percentage of advertising revenue which is being spent on content, look at global models.
Right.
Entertainment is about 55% of your total revenue is content.
Right.
Right. If I'm saying, let's say about 12.5-13% of your ad revenue is already going or is already being kept outside the country as profit. If I take 50% of your total cost as content, then some of these smaller channels are not being able to afford that price.
Right.
Right. So if they get subscription revenue, then suddenly their ability to spend more on good content increases. Or you have these real estate guys who don't pay tax anyway, who start investing in this business, and they push this number up to be for those medium-sized channels to be able to afford better content. Right. So then your whole market for content kind of starts to go up.
Right.
Right. Some years ago, we used to get, and I'm talking about a very simple one, right? So PSL production was for the first 3 years was given to a company called Sunset and Wine.
Okay.
The next 3 years it went to somebody else, right? And now it's coming to a company which is training people locally. How does that improve your overall capability levels, right? So you will now have people who are trained to manage cameras for a sport like cricket, right? And if you can do more events, there is enough equipment around to cover those, right? Sports as a genre in Pakistan has only picked up steam in the last 2-3 years.
That's true. And that's why there's a football league coming out now as well.
That's still a bit up in the air, but
right.
For that, you need the Football Federation to do elections so that a league can be RFP'd.
So Football League is not going to come because of some political issue?
No, so Football League, the issue is that FIFA technically
Right.
manages football across the world. Interestingly, at the federal level, after the 18th Amendment, there is no Ministry of Sports. It's a provincial thing. So your federation level institutions do not get any money from IPC.
IPC is...
Interprovincial coordination, right?
Okay.
That's where the money is supposed to come from.
Right.
So what does a federation do?
Right.
So the federation is supposed to take the money from the IPC, which is very little.
Right.
But in football's case, since FIFA governs it properly, they get their primary money from FIFA. And FIFA is now has a normalization committee set in, which is supposed to register the clubs and do elections. And once you have the proper elections done, then they decide that our way of raising money for our annual sports events is going to be through a football league. So that is when the RFP comes out.
So it's going to take some time, it
So it's going
sounds
to
like.
take some time.
Interesting. So, and that applies to then any type of sports league that gets created in the
No,
country?
because some of the other sports are not governed as tightly. And I'll give you an example.
Right.
Right. So football, you could start in Pakistan's case.
Right.
There is nothing in the constitution which stops you from starting a football league. But the problem is that the moment you go for, let's say, coaches or referees
That are global.
that are that are regional. Chalo, let's not take global, but even regional.
You'll need to
Let's
solve
say-
for that.
Yeah. So when you solve for that, everybody in football around the world has something called a FIFA passport,
Okay.
whether it is a player or an official, right? So it's a coach, it's a manager, it's a referee, it's a scorekeeper. All of them have FIFA passports. So if you don't have a FIFA passport, you will not want to go and work for a renegade league then,
Right.
right? So even if you look at India, where they had two, they are now coming together and forming one league because one of them was not
Right.
FIFA controlled. So that's how strong FIFA is. But if you talk about, let's say, table tennis, you could do a table tennis league tomorrow. Nobody will ask you.
Tennis
Or no
league,
better.
but tennis you would have to then go through the process because tennis is a little bit more tightly regulated.
Tennis is also tightly regulated.
Right.
Right. But interestingly, I mean, so
You
there
looked
is
at go-karting.
well, we are still, that's kind of from a sports perspective, Hazan,
Limited audience.
not really limited audience, but it's infrastructure investment, right?
Right.
So that's a go-karting circuit.
Right.
And that's what we invested in. And that is infrastructure investment. But if there is more, so for us, the ROI now is not about making money. The ROI is more about how many heroes can we create and how much can we help other people to look at these successful sports people and say, oh, I want to grow up and become this.
Have we done a good job till date of creating heroes?
But we didn't create heroes, they got created. Okay? Or they got created by people who didn't know how to handle them. Or who wanted to handle them and couldn't handle them. Right? So we're talking about sports people. We're not talking about converting sports people into something else.
Right.
Right? And so you will probably not get a Wasim Akram. Right? But you will probably get a Misbah Haq, right? In another sport. Right? So squash, some years ago, we used to have people like Gogi Alauddin and Jansher Khan and Jahangir Khan and so on. And then what happened? Right? Can we revive squash? Right? That again becomes a bit of an elitist sport in terms of its audience. Football, on the other hand, right? Or maybe even a motocross, where you have, like in Pakistan, you have like more than 100 million motorbikes.
True.
Right? And there is no motorbike racing track anywhere in the country.
Right.
right? So if there is an infrastructure investment that you want to look at, then maybe that is what it is.
So any sport that would target mass audiences. Kabaddi?
So football does, kabaddi does, volleyball does.
Why can't we make someone,
It's happening.
a hero out of kabaddi?
So right now, well, when we won 2 years, this was before COVID,
Right.
where we won this global kabaddi championship, right? There were people who suddenly came out and became heroes. But then there is not enough kabaddi events, right? So for people to become heroes, they need to have events. If you're going to have one event in a year, then by the time the next event comes, most people would have forgotten.
Right.
Right? So you need events. How do you get events? You get events by doing a league, right? Or by doing bilateral tournaments. So then you will ask me the question that how many venues do we have, right? So where is the infrastructure?
So again, it becomes an infrastructure question. So most of these sporting leagues are solved by infrastructure first.
Either or. So if you get into a league, then the league investment automatically brings in the venues where you play.
Right.
Right. So that goes hand in hand.
Okay. Interesting.
But again, how many sports can do leagues? So can we do a table tennis league, for example?
Right.
Can we do a volleyball league?
And these are low investment.
Very low investment.
Yeah, low infrastructure.
Even the stadium.
Cost.
So you have enough gymnasiums in the country to say, okay, I'll take a badminton court and maybe do some tweaks with it.
Yeah, and you can run it at volley.
And run a volleyball.
Volley, netball, badminton, same court. Now you've got pickleball, for example.
We're not thinking, right? That's my point. We're not thinking.
Because it requires investment. And right now, in this political uncertainty, who wants to invest?
And Faisal, so the thing is, even if somebody sitting in the government is listening to this, and it doesn't take much at a provincial level if you start investing behind these infrastructure investments, or taking them out and saying, okay, let me start doing these. Then so for example, now when I'm hearing about Sindh Premier League, right? I'm hearing about Sindh Premier League being done in National Stadium, Karachi. Why don't you want to take it to a Hyderabad or a Sakhar or a Larkana and say, let's do 3 more stadiums if we have a city team, right? Because the province has the money. Federation doesn't. So PCB relies on the money that it gets from, let's say, a PSL or bilateral series or Pakistan going out and playing somewhere else, right? But what about the Sindh government? They have the money.
Right.
Right. So why can't they invest behind infrastructure, right? Or the Punjab government. So that's where I'm trying to kind of go, because what happens right now is that a lot of your youth, your millennials, your Gen Zs, they have a lot of pent up energy. Okay. What are they playing? PUBG?
That's true.
Please.
There's actually tournaments for this taking place as well.
I know that. Okay. And that's what I hate, because that also is a game where you win by somebody dying, right? So please don't push me into that PUBG space.
Sounds like the Pakistan politics.
But put me, and I'm not getting distracted from my answer. So please put me into, give me a stadium for, let's say, some of these games, and I will say, let's go invest in them. Let's support, right, some of these events or some of these initiatives which are being taken.
And they will also serve as feeders for that national level tournament that takes place. So if it's a provincial level tournament, whether it's a Sindh League, where you play in multiple cities, feeds out new players from those cities into a national league, could potentially even feed your national cricket team then that way, right? So cricket and any other sport.
And now that you are also seeing money being spent behind cricket, which is the biggest sport.
Right.
So suddenly the money which gets spent behind cricket in a year, in the last 3 years has touched about 5 billion rupees a year. So even if you say, okay, I'm going to take 10% of that, and that will go on supporting through advertising behind these smaller events, right? Let's say a kabaddi or something else, or a volleyball or something else. that 500 million is enough to bring them from where they are as seed capital, right? So like 50 million, 70 million, you could do 10 events. So you suddenly have sports events happening through the year, right? And that creates another cycle that also creates content, right, for sports channels. So where I'm going with this thought process is that sports as a genre requires events which are easy to create.
Right.
Right? You don't need trained in acting, trained in writing, trained in lighting and production. And now that you have these production companies in Pakistan with Pakistanis who have been trained, you put them to proper use. Right? And you create another industry. Right? PSL, Najam was very, very concerned when we were launching, right? And he said, "Tum log ye paise kaise pure karoge?" And in the second right cycle, the amount that we bid was 3 times what we bid for the first right cycle, right? So what we paid for 3 years, we paid for 1 year in the next cycle.
Wow. In the very next cycle. Just because the audience was big enough to support it?
Because we all took PSL to that route.
Right.
Right. So my point is,
did you know PSL? But did you know going in PSL would be this big as it is today?
Absolutely. Which is why we took it. Right. And that's my point. Why that when you are shying away from investing or reinvesting, you are actually not trying out or innovating, and your innovating capability is stopped.
And you're not growing the economy, you're not growing the talent.
You're doing nothing.
You're doing nothing.
You're just making money and sitting on it.
Then technically there's no difference between you and any other rent seeker. You're another rent seeker in this economy.
But these guys are rent seekers anyway, because most of them rely on government advertising. And it's like literally the second time I'm saying this in the second interview, because they are all rent seekers. They rely on government advertising.
If you took the government advertising away, do you think they're profitable business models?
No.
Do you think they're operating the businesses effectively?
They are not.
So then that's like every other business sector in this country. That is a rent-seeking sector subsidized by the government, whether it is for energy, whether it is for tariffs or subsidies or cheap financing. Here, the advertising from the government is subsidizing this entire industry.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So there's a lot that we need to work on.
So I'm just saying it's a mindset.
Right.
Right. Now, a lot of people who work in this industry might hate me because I'm saying what I'm saying. And this is also the reason why people haven't seen me on a camera in a very, very long time. Right? Because unfortunately, when I speak the truth, it's controversial. It's not something that people would like. Right? Look at the industry I am in. Right? When I started, there were like at least 12 big agencies. Right? Today, you are, I mean, do ke baad teesra na, you'll struggle to think of a third name.
I honestly can't. Right? You're right. And I was going to say, what is the secret sauce that you beat out 12? You started in 99, 12 big names. And today there's only 2 that you can think of. And then third could be anyone. I'd love to say I'm third, but I know I'm not third. But it could be anyone.
Absolutely.
So what is your secret sauce in that?
Reinvest in people, Faizan. People run the business. They are the most important asset that you have.
Give me an example of how you've reinvested in people.
We have, look, even today, we hire more management trainees than we need. We hire at least, so let's say the team comes back and says, we will need approximately 30 management trainees in a year. We hire 50.
You hire, and how many do you lose by the end of the year?
We lose 15 or 18.
So about 30 to 40% you end up losing.
Fine.
Right.
Because those 15 or 18 who finish the training program are then hired by somebody else. Right. And now increasingly, startups and other companies who are now coming up have realized that people who were trained at Starcom actually can do better jobs than a lot of other people that you hire from somewhere else.
Right.
So that was the reinvestment. Now, if the first question that any entrepreneur would ask is, if I am going to lose people, then why should I continue training?
Right.
right? And that is how you build the industry. That is how you build the team.
Right.
I have made enough number of experiments. Well, not experiments, but I haven't let that thought process go, that I will continue to create successor after successor after successor, so that I don't have to run the agency. Because if I have to run the agency, then the capacity of my agency is my capacity.
True.
How much I can handle. But if I have a successor or a string of successors, then I'm adding the capacity, not just the capability. I am adding capacity. And the more capacity I add, the more I grow.
Right.
Right. So if you look at the other agencies who have not invested
Right.
behind successors or behind training new people, then you will stay as small as you are.
But on that, and again, as entrepreneurs, I think you hit the nail on the head. You have to invest in people. You have to keep investing, depending on what your business is, plant, equipment, people, whatever it is. Our business is people. And the second thing you have to do is trust, right? We have to trust. Without trust, there is no scaling, right? We don't know. So we are biased towards trusting someone. But what happens if you invest in someone years in, you trust them, and then they let you down in a big way?
What do you mean let you down in a big way?
I mean, they violate your trust. How do you deal and recover
let
from
me
that?
give you an example. So in 2 years, I lost my successor and his successor to Google.
Right.
Right now, I don't know if I want to laugh because they were hired by Google. I mean, Google recognized the training that we were giving to my successors to hire them.
That's a good thing.
Or to cry.
Because you lost you lost a pipeline.
I was back by like 5 years.
No, but so that's one situation, and that's fine. I think that's a good thing because you created talent that was recognized globally, right? But what about talent you created that themselves turned around and let you down?
Look,
how do you recover from that? Because as an entrepreneur, look, when we trust someone, and that trust is violated, and then it is violated again, maybe let's say 5 or 10 years later by a second someone who you've trusted for years. How do you, because I would struggle with that. How do you recover from something like that?
Okay, so I have a one-word answer for it, right? And that is focus.
Okay.
So when I say focus, every time something like this happens, there is only one thing that I know best, and that is the work that I do.
Right.
Right. So it just becomes a bullseye focus on let's do better. Let's rebuild. Let's work on what we know best and grow. Right? Because when you focus, when you go out in this industry, it's all about going out and pitching.
That's true.
Right? The day you stop pitching, somebody else will come pitch for your accounts and you'll start losing. So your focus needs to be on growth. Somebody takes away your business, somebody you trusted, fine. What do? You say, okay, I'm going to focus and grow the business back to that number and bigger. And that is the answer. Right? And over time, let the industry see who was the loser. Let the industry or let the people be the... Why should I waste my time sitting people down and saying, oh, it doesn't matter, koi baat nahi hota hai, or I'm upset? Because it's taking my time away from the focus I could have created. Right? So why would you spend that time thinking about a negative where you can focus on a positive growth piece? Right? And build a positive motivation. So it's not just me that is getting affected, right? When something like this, when an event like this happens, there are people in my senior leadership team who are also questioning themselves and saying, do we do this? Was that a good model? Do we also follow and leave Raihan and do something else? Or do we stick with Raihan? Right? And when they see this positive motivation coming through and saying, guys, let's focus on the work, let's grow, and let's show the naysayers how good we are, even without them. Right? And so the thing is, we've done that so many times now over the last, 25 years, that people who I work with may not have seen the previous event.
Right.
And they probably saw the current one.
Right.
But they know the motivation. Right? And we just move on.
So you're saying the growth is the best response?
Absolutely. There is no other way.
And it's okay if this happens. I mean, because I think that, and again, look, a lot of people who watch this are young entrepreneurs, and young entrepreneurs, you get shaken the first time an event like this happens where someone violates your trust, and someone, especially if that someone's very close to you, and some people don't recover from that, because what happens is exactly what you said. Then they clamp down, they say, why should I teach or train or give out? I should hold on to it. But to your point, that limits your business to you and the capacity you have. Right? So how do you get past that hurdle and say, you know what, it happened, fine. But my focus is I need this much capacity. Therefore, I have to trust and I have to train.
And I will continue to do that.
And you continue doing that. If you had to give yourself one piece of advice, looking back at, let's say, the last 25 odd years that you've done this, because you did start off as, we started off similar to that. We started off as on-job people, right? I mean, we took a job after college and then we worked for a while, and then you went and started the agency. So you know that what it's like to work for someone and starting your own business and the troubles and trials and tribulations of that. If you were to give yourself one piece of advice today, looking back at 99 when you started this, what would it be?
I would do it all over again.
Exactly the same way?
So I think the only difference would be how I managed the television industry, not my business. So my only regret is that I trusted the content creators because they were new when they came into the television industry when it was growing. And most of the news content that you see in this country went haywire. Right? You have people who are not trained in managing content. You have editors who are not editorially mature to be able to look at the content which is sent back by these DSNGs to say, oh, this should not go because it's editorially immature to talk about this, right? That to my mind is the only thing that I would change. Other than that, will I invest in my people? Always. Always. You can't take that away from me, right? And every time you think, oh, if I'm going to take that away, then I will not be able to take my next vacation, or I won't be able to afford that other car that I wanted or another property. Who cares?
Best investment decision you've made, what was it?
Talent.
And worst?
Also talent. Also talent. So you make mistakes and you learn.
Yeah. Fair point. I think that's actually a very valid answer, because it is all about talent.
It is.
And you will make mistakes.
And it's not that I've stopped, right? I still make mistakes.
You just, over time, you have more experience to recover faster from them.
And hopefully take longer in making the next mistake.
Right. And recovering faster. But the mistakes will happen, no matter...
You can't stop it. Yeah. Look, the problem is, if you are going to run a business which does not make mistakes, then you will only make money. Right? And nothing will happen.
There's nothing wrong with making money.
And nothing will happen.
Right.
What's the point, Faizan? I mean, look, maybe it is easy for me to say that, but the objective of running a business is to do good work.
Right.
Right? And when you do good work, money follows.
So it's aligning with your purpose in a sense. The whole concept of ikigai and what the world will pay you for, what your purpose is, what you're good at, and I think there was a fourth, I forget. But...
So you keep doing that, you will keep... So money follows. You run after the money, keep
money
following
runs
it.
further away.
Keep following it.
Amazing. This was an amazing chat. Thank you so much for taking the time out, coming and discussing pretty much everything controversial you could think of. and giving some great nuggets of advice. I think,
without taking names.
and without taking names, but those who know, they know. But I think it was very useful to hear this whole thing about mistakes. You know, we fear mistakes. And when we make a mistake, we think we can't recover from it. But I think making mistakes with longer gaps and recovering faster, that's the key. And with that, thank you for tuning into DigiTales this week. Subscribe, comment, like. We'd love to hear your feedback. You guys are what make this channel, and I really want to thank you for tuning in. I've been getting a lot of feedback, and honestly, I am just touched by all the viewers who've been, coming to me and telling me about the content and commenting. So please keep sharing your feedback, and we'll keep improving our content and bringing great guests like Raihan Merchant here. And thank you, Raihan, once again for coming on.
My pleasure.
Stay tuned for more. Bye-bye.